today. First-person shooters generally are not very scary, mainly because you're just going around killing everything that moves. Really, to make a first-person shooter scary, it has to have good atmosphere, and it has to have significant difficulty. Now, the Fear series did a fairly decent job making its first-person shooters scary, although, really, the first one was the only one that was scary, mainly because Fear 2 introduced giant battle mechs. But anyway, long story short, Fear tried to be scary and succeeded in the first game. Now, surprisingly, the early first-person shooters, such as Doom and Quake, actually were somewhat scary for the time.
In 1993, nothing was better than Doom. The graphics were simply unheard of at the time, and sure, by today's standards, the game is very arcadey, but back in the day, it was actually a very creepy game. All the ambient sounds worked to create a very tense atmosphere, and once, back in 1995, my grandfather was working late and decided to take a break and play some Doom. After about 15 minutes, the phone rang, causing him to almost jump out of his bloody chair. That was how effective this game was at creating a very tense atmosphere.
But then, of course, it had to outdo themselves with Quake 1, one of the few games that has genuinely been able to scare me. And so now, let's take a look at it.
Quake was released in 1996, and had some of the best 3D graphics yet seen. It blew everything out of the proverbial gaming water. The enemies looked far more detailed than anything that had come before. The game world had more than one or two textures, and the enemies now could attack you on more than just one plane. The monsters just looked amazing for the time. They had numerous little details like blood splotches here and there, and since this game was 3D, you could actually see them swing their weapons or aim their guns. For the time, that was bloody well mind-blowing, because before we got this, when an enemy attacked, it looked like this. Now we got this. A definite improvement, to say the least. Also, you can gib enemies. Sure, the gibs look pretty primitive and there's only like one or two chunks, but hey, that's a recognizable head, and that's awesome. Now, the gameplay is virtually identical to that of Doom. You kill everything, collect keys, and open doors. The gameplay is a little bit less linear than in Doom, as the levels are now much larger and have multiple tiers. And there are a few simple puzzles here and there as well. Really, the biggest thing that sets this game apart from Doom is the inclusion of traps.
Sure, you had traps in Doom, but they were always fairly easy to spot, and generally they were just crusher walls.
Here, though, they are far more numerous and a lot more insidious. You now have nail launchers in the walls that you can't really see until they start shooting at you, and plasma launchers in the walls that also are hard to see as well. The music for the game is quite good, but there is a bit of a debate as to whether this soundtrack is superior to the Quake 2 soundtrack. Well, here's an example of Quake's soundtrack. And now here is an example of Quake 2's soundtrack.
To me, Quake 1's soundtrack is just a little slow. But that's not to say it's bad. I prefer faster rock over slower rock, which is why I like Quake 2's soundtrack more. But in all reality, neither soundtrack is superior to the other. They're just different from one another.
For a first-person shooter, Quake has an intensely creepy atmosphere. Everything from the music to the sound to the creature designs is set up to create a distinct feeling of unease. This game is much darker than the earlier Doom, and as such really accentuates the creepiness of the sound design. Here's an example. I walk onto what looks like some water, only to drop down into a dark pit. I can't see anything, and all I can hear is this.
was events like that, coupled with the music, that really scared the crap out of me as a kid. Sure, you can shoot the monsters anytime you want, but you have to see them first.
This is also where the difficulty comes in. Those monsters that you can't see can kill you pretty bloody quickly, or at least hurt you a bit. And instantly dying from something that you didn't see can be pretty damn frightening. And thanks to the amazing graphics, the monsters are now actually scary. The Imp from Doom was, I guess, a little frightening, but now things actually have more detail than just red eyes and a growl. Now they can actually scare you. Just look at this thing. The Fiend. It looks like some sort of mutant ape with sickles for hands that can shred you in just a few hits. Also, this thing can jump. And then you have this thing that can jump and explode for massive damage. Now, when the game itself starts up, you have 3 difficulties to choose from: easy, normal, and hard. And this is done by walking your character into a slipgate, as they are called in game, and just look at how threatening hard mode is. You have zombies nailed to the wall and lava that you have to jump over. And after you walk through a slipgate, you then select which episode you want to play. And once again, you have to walk to a slipgate for each level. And each level has its own theme area that you get to go into that really sets the mood for the next episode.
Now, while the game has a very well-crafted atmosphere, the story is basic at best and vestigial at worst.
Quake 1 had a very Lovecraftian vibe to it, and the story matched the atmosphere. You were a guy that basically had to go and fight the Outer Gods, or Yub, Shigroth, or Shoggoth, or whatever the hell those bloody Lovecraftian monsters are. Really, the big problem with the story, though, is the fact there really isn't one. The only story bits are at the end of each episode, and even then it's just text, like in Doom. However, this text is slightly improved over the text seen in Doom, because these text bits are actually taken seriously and keep the atmosphere suitably creepy. And so with the non-story out of the way, let's take a look at the weapons. The very first gun you get is the shotgun, and surprisingly for a video game shotgun, it actually has good range. Its damage is fairly weak, however, but for a starting gun, it is quite good. Then you have the double-barreled shotgun, and it is okay, but it's still not that good. Sure, you're going to be using it most of the game, because shotgun ammo is, of course, the most plentiful. It has high damage, but its range is absolutely pitiful, which means you have to get up close and personal with it. And, of course, some of the more melee-oriented enemies, well, they can kill you pretty quickly, to say the least. Now, the shotgun is not that powerful, and it doesn't have a high cyclic rate. There is, however, one gun that is good against large groups of enemies and extremely powerful enemies. That weapon, of course, is not an assault rifle or a chain gun. Instead, it's a power tool? Wait, what? Yes, in Quake, the machine gun is a nail gun that fires nails fully automatically. This is kind of weird. You would think a lead bullet fired at several hundred feet per second would be deadly, but apparently in the Quakeverse, it's instead a tiny bit of metal fired via compressed air that is the bane of demonkind. Okay. Anyway, the nail gun, like the shotgun, comes in 2 varieties. You have the double-barreled nail gun for all your roofing needs that chews through enemies and nails in short order. And then you have the Gatling nail gun when you have to nail up 5 houses in one day, which blows through ammo and enemies quite quickly.
I just find the concept of the nail gun hilarious. Mainly because I get this mental image of the player character killing the final boss and then going to fix a roof with it.
You then have the grenade launcher, which to me is kind of useless. The grenades are hard to aim with, and you can easily blow yourself up with it, and it still takes numerous grenades to even down moderate enemies. It's really one of those weapons that is better than nothing, especially when you have to go up against zombies, seeing as how you can't kill them unless you give them. But once you get the rocket launcher, you probably will never ever use the grenade launcher again, mainly because the rocket launcher uses the same exact ammo and is far more accurate. And of course, it's a good weapon to use against moderate to high level enemies, and as you progress through the game, that's pretty much all you face. And finally, you have the BFG of the game, the lightning gun. It's decent at killing higher level enemies, but really it's not that good when you think about it, because you have to keep holding down the fire button in order to kill anything, which means you have to stand out in the open where you can easily get shot as you try to chip away at an enemy's health. To say the least, the game is difficult. Now early on, you only have to face shotgun and plasma guys and mutated dogs, but then, fairly quickly I may add, they are replaced with the Ogre. Really, this is the main enemy in Quake, a monster with really high health as they take numerous grenades, a grenade launcher of their own, and also a chainsaw! Essentially, he will be the bane of your existence. And then of course you have all the other powerful enemies like the Knight that can survive numerous shotgun shots. And then there is the Shambler. Good God, is there the Shambler.
You know, I would make a joke about abominable snowmen or something, but the Shambler is no laughing matter. It's got sickle claws that can kill you in a couple of swipes, and a devastating long-range lightning attack. Essentially, if the Shambler and the Cyber Demon fought, my money's going on the Shambler.
Really, the best weapon to kill these things with is, in fact, the nail Gatling gun, as it takes a lot of rockets to take him down, and every second one of these bastards remains alive is one less second for you to remain alive.
Now, one final thing to note is the multiplayer, which is quite possibly the most important aspect of Quake.
This was quite possibly Quake's single greatest contribution to gaming. This was really the first game to popularize online multiplayer. From Quake, we got QuakeCon, and from Quake, we got the popularization of online death matches and many, and I do mean many, of the multiplayer staples that we take for granted today. And to this day, people are still playing Quake 1 online.
Now, since this game is fairly old, it can be difficult to get it to run on a modern computer. You could use DOSBox, but thankfully, like with all those other classic first-person shooters like Doom and Dark Forces and Duke, Quake has numerous source ports, and the one that I use is Dark Places.
In addition to getting the game bloody well working, Dark Places also allows for a higher screen resolution, and it makes getting into a multiplayer game fairly easy as well, as the game gives you access to Dark Places servers and Quake World servers as well.
Quake 1 has aged surprisingly well. It's still just as creepy as it was back in the 90s. Now, you may dispute this, but just try to go through a dark house at midnight after playing several hours of Quake to get a drink of water. It will be a harrowing experience, to say the least. Apparently, id Software salutes me, as they should! Damn, why do I always run out of water at this time of night? It's already dark. I don't know what the hell time it is. Oh, it's midnight. Ugh. Where does the day go? Why would you install a light switch in the basement of the stairs? No, it's just a... It's okay. What the hell is that thing? I hear you. Where are you? Show yourself already! What is that thing? Ah!